you doing? Hope you're having a damn good day. Welcome back to the channel, and in today's episode of Tactics, we'll be looking to break down Roberto De Zerbi's 4-2-3-1 formation, his set of tactics, trying to replicate and recreate them in the game of FC24. So, before we hop on into it, please may you hit that like button down below, subscribe if you are new, that would be damn near fantastic, and let's hop on into things. So we've got Ferguson up front. I will discuss the tactics and how things do shift and change with the likes of Fatty potentially coming into the team, or the likes of Danny Welbeck coming into the team as well. So we've got Ferguson up front, we've got João Pedro just in behind, almost playing as a secondary striker at times. We've got Matoma and Solly March on either flank. We've got Pascal Gross and Dahoud as the double pivots. We've got Dunk and Webster as the duo in the back line, the two centre-back pairing. We've got Falkman and Estupinian as the fullbacks, and then we've got Jason Steele between the sticks. In the substitutes department though, we've got Welbeck, Fatty, Enciso, Gilmore, Verbruggen, Lamptey, and then Eagle. And then in the reserves, we've got Milner, Lallana, Adingara, who I really like and rate. We've got Van Hecker, and then a few other players like Baleba and so on that I don't care to mention. So for the formation going forward, I've gone with the 4-2-3-1 widespread formation. I haven't really changed much at all. In fact, it's one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, two DMs, one central attacking midfielder, two wide midfielders, and then one striker. So as for the tactics going forward, the tactical vision I've set to the standard approach. This does try and get the best out of what Brighton trying to do in games, and that is to try and dominate possession as well as having that fast-paced build-up at times, or looking to potentially have that long ball in behind and have runners latching onto that ball in behind and trying to exploit the opposition's defense. So that's why I've gone with the standard approach. As for the defensive style, it is set to balance, and that does allow them to either potentially press off the loss of possession or potentially hold what they have, try and keep their shape and their structure, and wait for the opposition to make the mistake. And that is more or less with the pressure and heavy touch, or potentially the press off the loss of possession. But we want to try and implement both into this team, so that's why I've gone with the balanced approach. The team width is set to 25. It's a nice compact system, hard to break down, hard to play balls between the lines and into those half spaces. The team depth though, however, is set to 75, a nice high line. It does also look to try and protect the likes of Dunk and Webster, who are very stricken when it comes to the pace. So it's not the highest of lines, but it is a decently high line that you can have them circulating the ball back into possession, winning it back aerially when the opposition are trying to hoof it up the field. For the offense, I've gone with a balanced approach for both the build-up play as well as the chance creation. You want to have the ability to play that long ball in from the defense into the forward line, or potentially just behind the opposition's back line. With the likes of Lewis Dunk, he is very good at playing that long ball, but at the same time, it is a possession-based style and system that De Zerbi looks to try and run. So you can have the build-up play set to being, the chance creation set to being on possession, and the build-up play set to being slow-paced build-up. But you want to have a very dynamic approach. You want to potentially have the ability to have your forwards running in behind, trying to exploit the opposition's backline, which you do see more times than not. I mean, I've seen Danny Welbeck, João Pedro, Matoma, and so on just running behind Manchester United defense, trying to exploit that line at times. So it's a very dynamic approach that you are trying to inflict with the instructions and the tactics going forward. As for the width though, it is set to 30. It's a very narrow system, but because the natural width and formation is very wide, you want to try and bring players in a bit more, have your fullbacks a bit closer to the midfield at times. Even though they will look to try and hunt the touch lines and create width and space down either flank, you still want them to sometimes, just come inside a bit more. And that's a nice tactic that De Zerbi looks to try and use to try and create confusion in the opposition's backline, with his fullbacks driving on into the middle of the park at times, creating a lot of confusion with who picks up the runner here and there. As for the players in the box though, I have set it to a very high 8. You want to have as many players flooding the box as possible for those scoring opportunities. The corners and free kicks, as per always, is set to 4. So moving forward with the instructions, we'll start off with Jason Steele between the sticks. He's set to be cautious with the crosses. He's not very well known for being able to claim those aerial balls that are whipped into the box, so that's why I've gone with a bit more of a cautious approach for him. I think maybe Verbruggen would be set to a bit more of a balanced approach, but for Jason Steele, I've gone with a cautious approach. But he is very good at having the ball at his feet, being able to play out from the back, start offensive ball to play from literally the goalkeeper, passing out wide, passing to either flank. His passing range as a goalkeeper is elite, up there with some of the best in the Premier League, so that's why we've gone with him to be a sweeper keeper. It is very essential for a Roberto De Zerbi team to have a good goalkeeper with the ball at his feet. Moving up slightly higher up the field though, we've got Dunk and Webster there, since their base set of instructions, no real changes there. But then we'll move out to our fullbacks, and there's some change, and you will be able to also see the difference between the likes of Falkman starting at right back, as well as Lamptey. But we'll start off with Estupinian. He's set to join the attack and be the overlapping runner, creating space down the left flank, more times than not creating space for Matoma. He is going to make those marauding runs forward, try to supply the forward line with crosses into the box. Very attacking-minded fullback, and that's what you're going to try and look to replicate in the game. His defensive position, though, is set to stick to position. You don't really want him being too aggressive on the defensive side of things, stepping out of position more times than not. But then you've got Falkman on the right-hand side here. He's set to having a balanced attack, so sometimes making those runs forward, other times looking just to hang back a bit more. He will look to also invert a bit, just trying to create a back three system, trying to make sure that the right-hand side is very solid defensively. And then in terms of his defensive position, I've got him set to step up. You want him, because he is going to look to try and stay back a bit more, you want him to try and be a bit more imposing on the opposition's back line. Moving on into our midfield, we've got our double pivot, De Hut and Gross. Now, we'll start off with Gross. He's set to cut past lanes and get forward. He will be the one player that does look to try and advance the ball a bit further forward, try and carry the ball a bit further forward as well. Having the McAllister role of last season, normal interceptions though are set to be on for him, and also being the deep line playmaker, he's going to potentially pick the ball up off the back four and progress it forward with the likes of De Hut going forward. Whereas De Hut, he will look to have a very similar role, but not as attacking. He will look to stay back and try and man the back line or just in front of that back four at times, trying to shield them more times than not. Normal interceptions though are set to be on for him, also be the deep line playmaker and then cover the centre. Like I said, he's going to try and shield that back four. Then moving slightly higher up the field to Joao Pedro, he's set to have a basic defensive support. You don't always want him dropping deeper, but when he does do it, he will look to link up play quite nicely with the midfield, collect the ball, and then make driving runs at the opposition's backline. But more importantly, you do want him almost playing as a secondary striker in certain moments, and that's why we have set him to the basic defensive support, because you want him to sometimes just be the second man running in the box, making sure that he is making those advancing runs into the back post areas or potentially to the centre of the final third. Free roam though is set to be on form. You want him popping up in the little half spaces that are created and generated with the sheer pace and movements of this team going forward in and around the box. You want him in those little half spaces functioning quite well. As for his interceptions, it is going to be a very aggressive press that this team does look to try and implement, and that starts with the front four going forward. So Joao Pedro, he is going to have aggressive interceptions set to be on for him. So moving out wide to Matoma, he's set to come back on defense, always looking to try and help out his fullback at times. Having a balanced work though is essential to try and get the best out of him. You want him sometimes cutting inside and unlocking the opposition's defense with a potential pass or a potential shot creation of his own. But more importantly, you want him to try and get in behind, trying to stay on the edge of the opposition's backline more times than not, trying to exploit them with his pace. But at the same time, you want him to try and lead that press as well, trying to be aggressive with it, as well as his crosses, his support on crosses, I should say. It's set to balance. Sometimes you want him in the box, other times you want him to try and create on the edge of the area. So for the right-hand side, very similar role to what Matoma has, but slightly different. Set to come back on defense as well, looking to help out the fullback, but this time he's going to look to be a bit more of an inverted winger, looking to cut inside and get shots off more times than not, as well as his support runs are not going to just be looking to get in behind and trying to exploit the backline, sometimes looking to come short or have a bit more of a freer role, looking to pop up in the little pockets of space that do arrive, or potentially making those advanced runs in behind the defense at times, as well as his aggressive interceptions are set to be on and having a balanced approach for his support on crosses. You want him to have a very similar role to Matoma, but on the right-hand side, but this time he will play as a bit more of an inverted winger. And then finally, moving on to Evan Ferguson, the centre forward of the team, and he's going to look to stay central, look to be the attacking focus point in the team going forward. He's also going to look to try and be a target man, hold up play back into the opposition, have players in and around him, linking up play with him. Aggressive interceptions though are set to be on form. He wants him to try and lead that press, that four-man press that they do look to try and exploit the opposition with, as well as he's going to stay forward, being that out there ball more times than not. So if you do rotate the team and Lamptey, Fatty and Welbeck come into the team, these are the sets of instructions that I think you can look to try and implement to get the best out of them, as well as trying to replicate a very realistic approach that they will have in games. So we'll start off with Lamptey. He's set to join the attack and overlap, as well as stick to position, very similar to what Estupinian does. In fact, the identical sets of instructions that Estupinian does, because you want him to advance forward, you want him to get the ball higher up the field and open those crosses, supply the forward line. Moving on to Fatty though, he is set to have a very similar role to Matoma, but this time he'll also look to be a bit more of an inverted winger, looking to get shots off for himself, make those arcing runs, getting in behind as well. Not exactly similar to what March does, but he will look to consistently look to try and get in behind the opposition, make those arcing runs, trying to attack the ball more times than not, as well as he's going to get into the box, making those arcing runs into the back post area. And then finally, we've got Welbeck. He is said to have a balanced approach for his support runs, making those arcing runs in and out of the box, or potentially taking up the central role. But in terms of his attacking play, I've gone with a mixed approach, sometimes looking to try and exploit the opposition with getting in behind, other times looking to hold up play very nicely, getting others involved, or potentially dropping slightly deeper, and that's why I've gone with him to come back on defense, dropping off the back line more times about sucking the opposition centre-back out of position and creating space for either a Fatty or Matoma potentially, or even a Sonny March to try and operate in a wider space, or potentially that narrow space that's now been opened up for the attacking play. So yes, my dudes, that is my version of Roberto De Zerbi's 4-2-3-1 formation, his set of tactics trying to replicate and recreate them in FC24. If you have enjoyed this, hit that like button down below, subscribe if you are new, that would be damn near fantastic. We've been doing a fantastic job in growing the channel so far, and I hope it continues. So, until the next time, I hope you have a damn great day. I'm out.